Good morning, I hope you're doing well. Today we're going to do some Leetcode questions, and more importantly, question 217, which contains duplicates, which I thought was a pretty interesting question because of the amount of solutions that I had to come up with to solve this question, and it's pretty fun. Anyway, the question is asking you, given an array of elements, of numbers, you have to go through each element within the array and check if there are any duplicates. If there are duplicate numbers, return true. If each number is different, then put false. And that's a pretty interesting question. I started off the question by thinking, okay, I could do a simple stage of comparing each number, which is 1 to 2, 1 to 3, and then 1 to 4. And then after I'd done that iteration, I would go through the next element in the array. So I would do 2 compared to 3, then I do 2 compared to 4. And then after I do that iteration, I go to the next element, which would be 3 compared to 4. And then once each element has compared to each other element, I know that, oh, each element is different, that means it is false. So if I compare the same method on the next array, I would do 1 compared to 2, and then after that I would do 1 compared to 3, and then 1 compared to 1. But then when that happens, I notice that, oh, they are the same. Thus, I would instantly end the loops, so I don't have to compare every other element, and I would know that this array would be false. No, sorry, it would be true, because there are elements that are the same. But in the other array, I would put false because it went through the entire iteration and could not find any numbers that are the same. Now, if we want to compare every value within itself, we would have to use a nested loop. And a nested loop is basically a fancy way to say a loop within a loop within a loop. So when you hear nested loop, just think loops within loops within loops. Now, we have two types of loops. We have for each loops, and we have traditional loops. A traditional loop has a starting value and has a conditional value and an incremental value. And within this loop, we have to be careful when we do a nested loop that the second loop doesn't start from the beginning of our array. Because if we did that, it would increment back to the starting point of the outer loop, which makes it sound like there's a duplicate value, which we don't want to do. So to solve this case, we would have to make sure that the inner loop starts one value to the right from the outer loop. That's why we have the starting value to be I plus 1. And then we add a little small condition to check if both values are equal to each other. And if that's the case, we return false. Return true. And then when that's all done, when they iterate through every element within our array, we return false. Because that means that, oh, every element in here is unique. Let's do our small test case. It's all green. I love when it's all green. Now, remember, this is our small test case. We have to make sure we go through a bigger test case to see, oh, and that's not good. Yeah, this is a bad formula because it's too long. It takes too long to solve all the cases. Another way we can try to solve this question is by using some data structures. And one data structure I'm thinking of using is a hash table. And a hash table is pretty cool because what it does, it adds a key value pair, meaning that the data is grouped with a unique identifying number, and then the number, that key value, is linked to a certain value. And the value can be a duplicate value or a list of values, more than one. The possibilities are endless. So what I would do is that I would add a key value pair where the key would be the number within my array, and the value would be the frequency of occurrence within the array. So in this case, I would go through each element in my array, add the key as the value, the key is the number within the array, and the value would be the frequency. So in this case, every element within my array only happens once, so they each get a value of 1. Now let's try it with the second array. I create a simple key value pair, or a hash table to create, and then I go through my array. So I have 1, 1, so I put the key as 1, the value will be 1. I have 1, 2, I add the 2 into the key, and I make the value 1. Then I go for the next 3, I'll make that key 3, then I make it 1. Then the last one, okay, it is of 1 as well. So I would update my key 1 to have a value of 2. Perfect. That means all I have to do is go through all the values in my hash table, and if I see a 2, I return true. Now let's get to the coding part, which is always the fun part, which I think. Now you're probably wondering, how do I make a hash table in Java? Great question. Well, it starts by making a hash map. And within your hash map, you have to tell Java, hey, what is your key value pair data types? And in this case, our key value data types are both integers. So I would put the integer class within both. The first bracket would be for the key, and the second bracket would be for the values. And then you just do a simple name your variable, and then you create your new table. Once a table is created, it's empty. So how do we, go through and make sure we add the values we want? You would go through a simple for loop. Within this for loop, you would go through each element within your array, and then you go put my store, you put. The first value would be the key, and after that you get the value. And in this case, I'm doing a little smart way, which is basically what I would do is I go through my store, and I say get the value, or if the value does not exist, please return a value of 0. And if that happens, it increments it by 1. And then once that's all done, it goes through all the elements within my array, which then populates my store. Once my store is populated, I can now go through each value within my store. That's what I'm doing right here with another for each loop. Because what it's doing is now going through each value within my store, and I'm doing another simple condition saying, hey, for every value you find in my store, if the value is more than 1, please return true, because that means it's duplicates, because the value more than 1. And then if it goes through all of that, I want you to just return false because there are no duplicates even going through all these loops. So we go through the test cases. Green, I like when it's green. But now we have to make sure that it passed all the test cases because these were just free. We gotta see if it passed all of them. So what is the example on the next page, which would be nice, all green as well. So we solved it. We did the first question pretty nicely. I like that, pretty good. Now, another way we can solve this question is, it kind of annoys me because of how simplistic it is, but it's so cool. So it's basically another data structure we can use to ensure the uniqueness of our values, which is called a set, which I did not know this existed until I did this question, which really bothered me. But anyway, it's so cool. So basically what you do is you create a set, and then what you can do is you can add every element from your array into this set, and then the set will do all the heavy lifting, meaning that it will do all the work and find out if the elements you're adding are unique from each other, which is so cool in my opinion. So if I had my first array and then I create a set and I go through every element of my array, add to my set, I would then have to compare the length of my set and the length of my array. And that will tell me, hey, if the lengths are different, that means there were duplicate values within my array. Simple as that. And it's crazy how that's all I had to do. I thought it was pretty cool how it worked because I don't have to do any heavy lifting and it's very little amount of work when you see the overall concept. So all I have to do is that, if both lengths equal each other, that means that they're the same and every element is unique. And if the lengths are different, that means that there's clearly duplicate values within the array, which is crazy to me. So if I do it with my second array, I would go through the array and then I would iterate through each element. And then I would create a new set to add these elements to. So in this case, I would add the 1, the 2, and the 3. However, when I get to the second one, it won't be added to my set because the set will know, by the way, I already have this number. Why are you adding it? Get out. It's like some kind of expensive club at the end. It's so funny. So anyway, I have this new set and I can just use it to check the length of both. Oh, I could probably change it to verses. That makes more sense. And check if each element's different, which is pretty cool. Now let's do the code, which is always a fun part. Now you're probably wondering, how do I make a set to add from all my elements in my array? Which is a pretty good question. We start by making a simple hash set. And we do the same thing we did with the hash table, which we have to ensure and tell Java, hey, what is the data type you want to put in this set? Because we only have one data type within our sets. And in this case, we'd always want to make sure it's an integer. And then I would name my value, name my collection, and I would create a new set. And then all I have to do is do a simple for each, which then I would go through each element within my array. And then what I can do is add each element within my array to my set, which is a simple mySet.add nums. And then, this is even cooler, is that I don't have to do a simple condition. I can do the condition in the return statement by doing a mySetLength, which in this case would be the size, versus the array length. So I would have to do a simple comparison, which then will return true or false depending on the outcome, which is so cool. I don't do anything. So I run this test and let's see if it's green. Yeah, it's green. I love it when it's all green. Got those nice green free test cases. But now we have to check, does it pass all the test cases in this example? Because we have 75 test cases. Ah, nice. It works. I like it. This is good. Really good job. Good job on me. We're so smart. And that's it. You just found out 3 different solutions on how to solve contains duplicate Leetcode question 217.